And a good Thursday afternoon, everyone. Roger Hill of Wuthering Heights, VELCO Weather Hazards Forecaster. This is the VELCO Weather Hazards Outlook. At large, you're looking at the country, of course, North America, and we have this big, broad, upper-level trough. This is the controlling influence on our weather. And what has been the controlling influence on our weather is this ridge of higher pressure. It's still bringing a lot of sunshine across the eastern seaboard. Of course, we have Tropical Storm Philippe, which is also going to get into the act, and these two are going to interact, and what ends up happening is Philippe makes a run. It looks like makes a landfall somewhere in downeast Maine, possibly western Nova Scotia. Needless to say, it gets pulled into the system as this upper-level system evolves, and instead of a trough of lower pressure, we'll have a cutoff low kind of north of the Great Lakes, about James Bay, and then it kind of gets down a little bit further off to the south, just to the north of the Great Lakes. The net effect is that we're going to see a pretty good surge of moisture, some of this moisture getting stripped off, and this combined cold front approaching makes for kind of a complex forecast, but eventually we will see some gradient winds as this upper level low will be circulating, and a little bit of a push of west to southwesterly winds that will interact with terrain. This is just about near thresholds of around 40 miles per hour. That'll take place, it looks like, roughly about the mid-morning on Sunday, likely into some portion of the afternoon. A lot of details yet, a little bit too. A pretty good warm scenario is in the process of cooling off. Of course, we still have some decent 70s that are working in, but behind that warmer air, behind this cold front, is some colder autumn air, and that's what's going to be shuffling in. And it looks like that transition period especially is going to be between Saturday and along about Sunday. And then beyond that point, we're looking at temperatures back into the 50s and more seasonal for this time of year in October. Okay, here we are with the European on the left-hand side. We have the GFS ensemble on the right-hand side. This is our frontal boundary, our area of higher pressure that's controlling our weather, with that ridge shooting back west across all of New England into New York State, and dry weather currently. This is the remnants of Philippe, or Philippe that will get its act together a little bit better and push its way northward. So we're going to do this in sort of 3-hourly increments here. This is tonight. That is during the overnight period. This is tomorrow early morning hours, and then really starting at about 8 o'clock on Friday. You can see we're just starting to see a little bit of shower activity here in this sort of gray. We're talking about generally less than 0.05 of an inch. As you can see, with the GFS ensembles also showing a little bit of a surge of moisture. And we'll just continue to run this. Now, this little streak of moisture goes along the Connecticut River Valley and kind of scoots up. You can kind of see just some sort of a deal here with the GFS ensemble, but using the European, this is Philippe again. You can see that the combined bits and pieces here, where this system kind of halts, comes to a halt because the upper low is sort of gathering, intensifying aloft. This is going to halt this frontal boundary, but more line it kind of north and south. But we get some pretty good moisture here spreading up across eastern parts of New York and into western Vermont. Not all of Vermont's going to see that. You can see Philippe's moisture starting to become stripped off and pulled into the system. That's enhancing it. And so consequently, the heaviest rainfall is going to be to our east and also a little bit to our west, but that's going to work across the state of Vermont during especially Saturday night. Kind of a complex setup here. Now, eventually, all of that's going to rotate north, Philippe included. All of that moisture gathers across parts of Quebec and downeast Maine and the Canadian Maritimes. And you can see this 981 area of low pressure. That's kind of northwest of Montreal. That's going to push back north of the Great Lakes or in the vicinity of James Bay, Canada. And the leftovers are just showery conditions. However, during this transition, there'll be just enough of that wind here with that gradient pushing in across Vermont. Wind gusts nearing 40-mile-per-hour thresholds. After that, it's basically just showery conditions. And note this blue line here. This is cold enough aloft to produce a few wet snowflakes, so some of our local mountaintops have that possibility. But here again, it's right on the edge, and it looks like the colder air and the upper level low kind of circulates north of Sault Ste. Marie, and then kind of continuing a track that is going to stay mostly out of our hair, but we're right on the edge of that as we head into time here for Thursday and looking all the way out to Friday. It looks like we just have colder air, a little bit of shower activity remaining to the north. Eventually, this system will move in, but that's well around the corner. Let's take a look at the GFS ensemble. GFS ensemble centered on the grid point of Montpelier shows one 3-hourly QPF, one big batch of moisture here, and then some gibberish, some light shower activity behind it, a little bit of light shower activity ahead of it. That's Friday. This is mainly all Friday night into Saturday night and Sunday, coming out of Sunday, and then a little bit of lighter precipitation. This is all in the form of rain shower activity. Total QPF looks like this with the GFS. A little bit greater than 1.0 amounts, almost edging toward 1.5. So pretty healthy rainfall here. This is again on Montpelier's grid point. I think further off to the west and western parts of Vermont, you're looking at somewhere between 1.5 and perhaps 2.5 inches. Of course, this will all be in the form of rain and rain shower activity. The other thing I want to show you here real quickly is 850 winds, so roughly about the top of Mount Mansfield. We're seeing some gusts, wind gusts up in the sort of 30 to 40 mile per hour range, and again, that's showing those thresholds along about Sunday. Weather Prediction Center total 7-day accumulated rainfall shows around 2 inches with this purple line here, and that's 3 inches in the western Adirondack Mountains. Further into eastern parts of Vermont, you can see that it gradually tapers off just a little bit, but it's still pretty healthy rainfall. We've had some anomalous warm temperatures, of course, and you can really see that. It's really across Vermont and points north into Quebec. However, that's going to change with that colder air and this upper level low wrapping around, spreading in that chillier air. The MOS output shows basically neutral conditions over the course of the next 5 days of high temperatures only. Warm to the north, cooler off to the west. 3 days later, it looks like this. You can see we've made some inroads with cooler temperatures beginning to work in. It's going to feel a little bit more like October. Tropical storm Philippe, you can see here as a tropical storm, basically into downeast Maine, kind of east of Bar Harbor. That seems to be the case. 51-member European ensemble shows this basically, and this is again is Philippe. You can see that it intensifies. It goes over some relatively warm water, gets its act together with less shear. And we're in that 40 to 50 max wind, 40 to 50 knots. And then as it approaches, it looks like there's a couple outlier, but more or less this has been centerlining into parts of downeast Maine, generally east of Bar Harbor and into, it looks like, parts of western Nova Scotia. And then this kind of curls back to the west, gets captured by that upper level system.